We already reacted to Vostok, Road to Vostok 1, where we had the developer himself put a quite hefty text over here, where he went through some of the concerns that I had watching and reacting to the first video. I do appreciate that. It's been very informative, and a lot of my questions were answered. So now we're gonna watch the second one, Devlog 2, and I think he's gonna dive more into some more technical details and features that the game is gonna have. I'm very curious, and I'm glad that I'm here to share it with you.
Road to Vostok is a game where there are different zones and individual maps which are based on real-world locations. This episode is going to be an in-depth analysis for one of those maps. The specific map is located in the Area 5 zone and it's called the Village.
As
Village
the
is also
starting
the
zones.
location that will be featured in that first public demo at the end of summer. So finalizing this map is going to be my main development priority for the next couple of months.
That is the right structure. That is the right way to do it. Do something, an initial, a first demo anyways, with some of the elements that the game is going to have. And slowly, as you develop, you add more and more.
I would also like to mention that in terms of this YouTube channel and upcoming map-related content, my plan is to make two types of videos. For each map, there will be an analysis video and also a trailer video. These map analysis videos, like this one, are going to be mostly developer talk, level design stuff and behind the scenes content, and those map trailers will be short, gameplay only videos without any voiceovers. For every map analysis video, the format will be the same, and there will be two main topics in each of those videos. These are map lore and level design.
Okay.
These analysis videos are not going to be the most action-packed videos on this channel, but because all of the maps are based on real-world locations, I want to demonstrate the design work that goes into these maps. Also, based on the previous video, a lot of people seem to like this style, where I'm also trying to explain how the things work from a game design perspective
100%.
compared to just showing some video clip related to the topic.
It's insane how much detail he went on the first video, analyzing the tactics and techniques that he is going to use in order to develop the game. That is something that is unheard of. No one does that, and we do appreciate that. It's so important,
So, without further ado, welcome to Village.
Because what a gameplay will do to you, just the gameplay, if you don't know what happened to get there, you learn to appreciate that in a different way. And also understand, you teach us how you did your game, and that is incredible.
Village is a rural area about 30 kilometers from the border zone. Before the tragic event occurred, Village had a small but fairly tight community of people, mostly elders, but there were also younger families who moved there after herding land and property from their parents. In terms of housing, Village often lacked access to essential services such as running water or electricity. However, people who lived there were used to these shortages, and most of the elderly had experienced wartime at a younger age, so this wasn't a big deal for them. There wasn't much activities in the village though. The most common ways to spend time were just gardening and fishing in the nearby sea. The highlight of the year was the village festival during Midsummer's Eve. During this festival, the people of the village came together, and traditionally they smoked the whole pig, had a barbecue, and of course drank way too much of alcohol.
I'm a person that lives in a village, a fairly small village of 6,000-7,000 people, which is not a lot if you compare it with other countries. And that looks awesome, yeah.
Villagers often drove to the border zone because they got cheap petrol from the other side of the border.
Yeah, same with us. If you go to the other side, in the Turkish side, you find cheaper gasoline and other goodies. But I personally don't do that. But yeah.
In addition to cheap gasoline, tobacco and vodka were also often imported across the border and distributed among the villagers.
Damn vodka.
One villager even took things a little further and often smuggled large quantities of these products on an old bus without paying any import taxes.
That's my boy.
Whenever this bus returned to the village from the border zone, the locals always knew that the fun times are coming and there was enough stuff to distribute for all the villagers. As a result of this smuggling, it was typical that the villagers had more than just canned food hidden in the basements. There were even rumors that someone had several ground caches full of tobacco and vodka as well as old Soviet weapons. Rumors of these ground caches spread so far that even the children of the neighboring villages often played a game called Find a Cache, and at the night they set out to look for these caches with flashlights as if it were some exciting treasure hunt. In summary, life in the village was difficult at times, but there was a good team spirit in the village and everything seemed to be going well until everything changed that day in the border zone.
There we go. So that's the lore. We enter now the level design and probably some replications of what we saw on the first video.
Level design is a complex topic. There's a lot of variables involved.
But of course he's gonna dive more into details, some of the details that he probably didn't mention before.
Like game genre, target platform, and nuances like the abilities of the player's controller. Level design is also a process that usually requires multiple phases. In this episode, I'm not going to cover all of these.
Okay.
I want to focus mainly on the big picture, which in this case is the general map layout. The first thing I would like to talk about is this composition ideology called primary, secondary and tertiary.
I don't know what
this ideology is well known in many fields of traditional art, but in my opinion it works really well for level design as well. If you look at these images, it's simply a matter of maintaining a balance and interest when it comes to the placement of things.
Oh, I see.
From a level design perspective, you can think of these shapes as buildings, for example.
I see.
The goal is to create a map where there are details of different sizes and distributing them in a way that's appealing to the player and works for the level.
You distribute parts of the, let's say, house towards potential spawning of different objects to create the atmosphere of the house or whatever, while you want a specific area to be open, to be walkable by a player, right?
Now let's start building our village level with this.
I like the fact that he has a 70 to 30 ratio, with this being the, you know, the walking area, the empty area, secondary plus 50-50, that is the boring, and I like that ideology. It just makes more variations of the item placements.
Ideology.
I like it.
I start with just simple 2D shapes and colors. First I create the terrain, then I place the main elements like roads and water areas, and after that I start distributing those details. I begin by placing the primary details, which in this case are the plots of land associated with the village houses. After that I place the actual main houses, which are those secondary level details. These are the largest buildings on that plot and they must be clearly visible to the player.
Similar technique, not quite there yet, but similar technique was 7 Days to Die is using, where they distribute a specific square. Let's say it has the roads, aka the way that we have it over here, and all of these blocks can have an RNG placement of different buildings. This is a little bit different, but it follows kind of the same ideology, and this is for random generation, a great system to use as a RNG, not RNG, random generation.
Next up is the tertiary details, and these are the smaller buildings which could be suitable for those plots. These are things like sheds, warehouses and so on.
Yeah.
And of course,
Secondaries.
there are also many other details involved to this village layout, but in order to keep things simple, let's go with just these.
Yeah, it's pretty good so
Next,
far.
I will put these details into groups, and let's take a closer look at what these buildings are in practice from the perspective of this village map. During this showcase, I will be silent. I hope you like the atmosphere of these photos that I took when I visited that location.
Actual houses, brother. They are solid. If he used buildings like these ones that we saw earlier that he did, that's gonna be solid. I mean, we create a pretty good atmosphere.
Hopefully these photos convey the atmosphere that I'm trying to achieve with this village map and with this game in general.
Yeah.
In my opinion, understanding and constructing these authentic post-apocalyptic environments is achieved only by the developer visiting and photographing these abandoned places himself.
Yeah.
I have over 1000 photos from this location, but this specific mailbox photo is probably my favorite one.
When I tried to do a house, let's say, which when I was learning how to mess around in Unreal Engine, you always want to have a point of reference. Otherwise, that is so far that your imagination will go, right? You want to use elements or houses or designs from somewhere else, and some way or another you try to replicate that and then put your own twist. That is exactly what's happening over here. He has a good point of reference from in the real life. He went over there, took the pictures, and now he's gonna, create it in his own way. Great method to use.
This photo symbolizes the idea pretty well that if the developer just stays at home on the computer, it's pretty hard to visually understand these post-apocalyptic details.
Or you
like
Google.
And also, regarding those building images, you might be wondering what they're going to look like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one unfinished example.
Yeah, that's what we saw on the intro. Solid, man. Looks really good. Of course, imagine there's gonna be a lot of, trash around and a lot of other debris, I guess. That's gonna just add more value
Now
into
let's
it.
go
But
back to this map layout
pretty good.
and start adding more layers in terms of level design. The second topic I want to talk about is point of interest, also known as POE. Point of interest is basically a unique element of a level architecture that stands out from the composition. In terms of level design, these POEs are a great way to catch the player's eye and give general idea on level directions, but they are also useful for encouraging exploration and creating some variety in the level. Let's look a couple of examples from other games. In Fallout 4, when you first enter the open world from the vault, you will be presented with this view.
Yep.
This view isn't random, it's carefully designed just for the player's perspective.
That is when you come out of the vault initially in Fallout 74, whatever is the name, you see all of this terrain. In the player's mind, and the reason why developers do that is because they give you the feeling of what's to come. Hey, you eventually gonna go and explore this vast territory. It's really important to establish that at the beginning, because if you spawn a player in an area full of big houses and you don't know what is out there, or you don't have a rough idea, it doesn't really motivate you to go out and explore, right? The first feeling, the first image that you see as you come out is, holy shit, this area is huge. I'm gonna spend so much time exploring. It's catchy to the eye, that's exactly what he's saying.
Point of interest have been thoughtfully placed in the view to help the player to navigate. These POEs are things like landmarks, leading lines and structures. The other good example is from Skyrim. In Skyrim, there's this huge open world, and usually when you go to do something like questing, you set yourself a clear destination, but the route to this destination is never really a straight line, even if the terrain allows it. The reason for this is the POEs placed by the developers, which are tactically sprinkled along certain routes and areas to encourage the player to explore and avoid boredom associated with the travel.
Exactly.
This level design tactic makes the route to the destination look more something like this, which is a good thing, from my opinion. Fallout 4 and Skyrim have huge open world maps, but these same PoE principles can still be applied to smaller scale maps like this one.
One of the most important things is reward the players for going off court. If the path, right, takes you from PoE to PoE, right, the way that it is designed right now, it will also be rewarding if you go off court, if you go, off track, for those who do like to explore left and right, which is something that I do. I think Ark failed to do that when you go and find a waterfall. Like you are like, wow, amazing waterfall. And then I'm going to go below it and I'm going to go inside of it. And there is always nothing. It's just blank. And you're like, why do a PoE over here? You know, put a point of interest somewhere over here. Reward me for going this way instead of the other way, you know? And the way that is designed over here is, yeah, it's exactly that. It will reward you for taking one step away from the path and explore something around.
PoE principles can still be applied to smaller scale maps like this one. For example, I can place a couple of PoEs to locations where I want the player to go or which makes the level navigation easier. In terms of spawn points, which in Road to Vostok are called transition points, I also make sure that these PoEs are visible and eye-catching to the player. In this episode, I don't want to reveal what these PoEs actually are. Let's leave them as a surprise for that public demo.
Yep.
The last thing I want to talk about regarding level design is hero asset. The term hero asset has many purposes in game development, but when it comes to level design, it usually means something that is really unique and memorable in the level. Like, for example, in The Last of Us, when you enter this space, you will encounter such a memorable vision that this part of the level will remain in your memory for a long time.
Definitely.
Without that helicopter crash, this part of the level would be just another desaturated space and easy to forget. Another example would be something like the Green Mountain and its radio tower in DayZ. This tower is definitely a point of interest and a big landmark, but it's also a hero asset. Let me explain. This specific tower is surrounded by a lot of different mysteries and rumors that add interest and depth to the game world. While these rumors are mostly community driven, like a secret radio transmission or occasional haunting, the main point here is that sometimes a well-placed simple 3D object can make a surprisingly big impact on the game and its story. So let's add one hero asset to this map layout. I'm willing to reveal what this is because it's kind of already mentioned in this episode. The hero asset of the village map will be that old bus which was used for that smuggling operation mentioned in that map lore chapter. And here's the reference images for that bus.
Damn. The fact that he went over there and found the bus.
Now, let's say that we are happy with this level layout. So let's move on to the next
solid.
step. The next step is basically to create a playable village map and terrain in the game engine based on this level design layout.
Of course.
In this context, I would like to mention that if you are a solo developer like me and you have multiple maps that you have to make, you must have some clever approach to this, because there's no time for doing everything manually, like sculpting terrain, painting textures, placing assets, and so on.
Yep.
My clever way of doing this is a bit technical, but I will try my best to explain. First, we get rid of this fancy paper overlay and look at these simple shapes.
The way that he does is he's gonna dedicate a specific area that these specific items they're gonna spawn over there in a different formation, in a different way.
Reason why I use these primitive shapes when I'm designing a level, and the reason is masking. I convert these colors to primary RGB colors, and each of these is going to be a unique mask for textures in the game engine. Then let's talk about rendering. In video games, basically everything that you see is made out of triangles, which are 3-point polygons. These triangles are held together by vertex points, and each of these vertices is basically a small data container. These vertex points can store different types of data, but for this example, the most useful data type for us is that color data, also known as vertex color. This specific data type is also useful because it provides interpolation between color data. This means basically that there's automatic gradients related to colors. The idea behind these gradients is that inside the game engine we can transition between different ground textures smoothly, just like in nature and real life. And here comes the cool part.
Alright.
In video games, maps and terrains are basically made out of planes, and these planes have thousands of small triangles and vertex points. By using something called image to vertex color, I can transfer our village map layout to this plane's vertex points, and this process is totally automatic. And now we have an identical map layout that isn't no longer just a layout image, it's now a 3D plane with different masks stored in those vertex colors. Now let's bring this plane to game engine. I'm currently standing one of the main roads in the village, and the mask for this road was red color. And like mentioned in the previous episode, I have plenty of development tools available that are specifically designed for this game and these workflows like this one. For example, we can use this procedural generation tool that recognizes these vertex color masks and generate most of the nature assets that we need for this village map. Next development tool that we use is a custom terrain shader that automatically blends different ground textures to these vertex colors.
Impressive.
Then let's add some of those village details. After this, I would use my displacement tool, which elevates the ground based on height maps, but that's probably a topic for another video. Let's finalize this level design example by adding some windy weather effect, and here's the result.
Impressive, man. Creating the tools is the hardest thing, but using the tools,
this was
you
the
are
first
the boss.
map analysis video on this channel. For some, videos like these are not the most interesting because these contain a lot of talking and less gameplay footage.
Yeah.
My goal with this channel is to try to find a balance between these different style of videos, so the next video will definitely focus more on the gameplay content. It would be awesome to hear your opinion on this video and whether this format is good for presenting those other maps as well in the future.
So good, man.
Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode.
So good. What he's doing is underrated, 100%. Like every developer did exactly what he's doing. Oh boy. The fact that he goes so much into detail, analyzing his techniques and tools and how he utilized them in order to create something like this is impressive. The format of the entire video, I said it the first time and I'm gonna say it again, is a 10 out of 10. Hopefully he keeps it up going the way that he demonstrates everything and presents everything, goes so detailed into each element and technique and everything. I love the video. And it's very informative for me. You know, at the end of the day, I also learn and I get to understand game development a little bit better. So I do appreciate that, and hopefully you guys liked Road to Vostok Devlog 2. I can't wait for the next one, where we're gonna get more into details, into, you know, character animations and gun mechanics and looting and all of that. Yeah, incredible.